Sling TV, built to save you money and bring you the channels you love, including ESPN, AMC, HGTV, and more. Watch your favorite comedies, dramas, suspense thrillers, news, sports, and more for just $35 a month. And your first month is only $10. Sign up now and start streaming right away on your TV, phone, and tablet. Take control of your TV solution with Sling. It makes TV flat out better. Go to sling.com to sign up now and get your first month for just $10.
Right Night is a talk show with published authors, writers, and content creators discussing both the creative and technical sides of writing, as well as the industry surrounding it, from novels to screenplays to comics and more. And now, here's your host, author Travis I. Sivart.
Welcome to Right Night. We'll get to the topic of discussion in just a moment. For those listening to the podcast, we record the podcast on our live stream at twitch.tv/Travis Tavern Talk, and we have a live interactive chat audience. You might hear the sound of the bell ding, and that means I want to interrupt somebody to read a comment or question. For those on the live stream, we won't read off everything you put in chat, but we'll try to get to the most relevant, the most amusing, or some combination of the both. Now, while we introduce ourselves, go and let us know what you're reading, writing, or creating tonight. And welcome to Right Night. Tonight's topic is gonna be handling artists. So, let me introduce myself and we'll get to the topic in a moment. As you heard, I am Travis and I have written, with handling artists, you know what, I'm going to mention Harbinger, book 1 of the Downfall series, because that, in Steampunk for Simpletons, was my experience working with the best artists that I've worked with thus far. And I've worked with some very good ones. Let's go ahead and have our other co-host du jour introduce themselves. Robert, can we start with you?
Hey everybody, my name is Robert Turk. I am an author and game designer and independent publisher. So I've worked with cover artists on my novels and short stories, but worked with a lot of different artists publishing role-playing games.
Website.
My website is wicked-clever.com.
Very good. And you, John?
And I'm John Millington from Jersey's Cards and Comics and Conquest Publishing. We are working on a role-playing game and comics and various other projects currently. I am an artist and I do like to be handled, so...
Hey, how you doing?
Take it as you wish. You can see some of our work at conquestuniverse.com and down the road, rpggaming.org.
Now, John, let me go ahead and start with you, since you mentioned that you're an artist and you like to be handled. As an artist, whether it's personally or just with the rest of the community that you've interacted with, what is the expectation of interaction from people hiring you to do work? What kind of stuff do you want to see from them? How much control do you want them to take versus how much do you want to retain? What's the expectation?
Well, I will let you know that different artists need different amounts of
handling. Yeah.
For me personally, I want a good description of whatever the character, the setting, whatever the genre is. I need to, have a good representation of what I'm going to be producing. I.e., we're doing some artwork for the DMs Guild.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first piece looks like a traditional D&D fantasy piece, and then the next thing that they're wanting looks more like Monster Hunters through, more of a steampunk piratey kind of look, and it's like, the time period's way off between the two of them, but they expressed enough that we knew that that's what they actually wanted. So
okay. Now, Robert,
some artists want absolute freedom for everything that they do. They want minimal input, and that's my artwork. take it with a grain of salt.
Okay. Now, Robert, you've hired many different artists for many different projects.
Yes, I have.
And, oh, by the way, just a quick disclaimer. We will only say good things when we mention names. We're all professionals here. We've all had good experiences and bad experiences, and the bad experiences can be expressed, but we're never going to mention a name or possibly even a project they were associated with, because why? Why do that?
Right.
And
I'm not slamming anybody.
No, yeah, Robert, and that was definitely not to you. This is just in case somebody wants, like, the nerd Jerry Springer experience. You're in the wrong house here. Yeah.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, Robert. So you've had a lot of experience working with artists and telling them what you want. You got a couple, like, just pearls of wisdom that you're like, keep this.
So I don't know what John's process is, but my process when I reach out to an artist, before I hire them, one, I will never do what's called spec work. And spec work means, hey, this is what I'm looking for. You draw something, and if it fits what I'm looking for, I'll pay you for it. Me personally, I don't think that's cool. I wouldn't do it for writing. Like, I wouldn't write an adventure for a publisher and say, hey, if you like it, pay me. So I won't do it for artists. I'll go and I'll look at their online portfolios. And if an artist can't show me a portfolio, they're not at the level yet for me to hire them.
It's reasonable.
So that's the first thing. Have a portfolio to show people if you want to get hired. And I'll have friends be like...
And if I may, a portfolio with a variety in there. If you're like, well, I don't really like this, it looks sketchy or scrappy, put it in there. Somebody might be looking for that. You can have this range. Sorry, Robert, go on.
Absolutely. No, but so that's the first thing, is I want to see somebody's portfolio. Before we talk about my project, before we talk about anything, I want to see, do I like your art? Not is your art good or bad, but do I like it? Is it going to fit for what I want? And if it doesn't fit for what I want, there's no need to talk to the person. There's no need to get their hopes up and then not hire them. And if I've got other artists on the project, it's like, okay, does your work look like it could belong in the same world, in the same book as this person's work and this person's work? Which to me is a lot of fun, pulling together a team of different artists that don't do the same thing, but all look like they go together.
In my head, what I'm seeing right now is a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons books since the inception of the game. You'll see 3 to 5 different art styles within any individual book, except Fiend Folio. All that kind of looked scrappy.
Fiend Folio might have been the same artist through the whole thing back then. That's before they had money.
It's true. Well, that's like their 3rd or 4th monster book, so they were doing okay. Anyhow, we're not going to go into the history of that. Go on, Robert.
I don't even remember what the question was now.
We're just talking about, how you pick and choose, how you've put together books with multiple artists in each one, and we were talking about that process. You're going into your process, and you're going to pass it over to John to let him rebut.
Sure. So when I find an artist that I like, and I find a lot of artists at conventions, back when we did conventions in person, that was a thing back in the great ages of 2019. And just strolling through Artist Alley. And if I liked somebody's work, and I thought it would fit something that was coming up, like I knew I was working on this project, I knew I needed artists for it, whether that was cover for Persnickety Jones, whether that was interior art for Weird Scouts, I would take their card and buy a print so that I remembered who this is, what I liked about their style, and it would go in my bag. And then when I get home, I spread them all out, I look at them, I talk with my wife, and we contact people. But as far as giving an artist the information that I want, when I'm hiring somebody to do a cover of a book, one, they've got to be able to do a cover. They have to know, you're leaving space at the top for words, okay, and you gotta, it's got to be evocative, and you got to have this. But mostly, it's, this is what the book's about. This is the feeling I want to evoke. And I let them be an artist. If it's interior art, it might need to be a little more specific. Like on this page, I need a dryad and a naiad. All right, so I need a tree person and I need a water person, and they need to have some sort of interaction, and that's enough. On another page, it might be, you know what? I need the troop journal. This is what a troop journal is. It's a big book with a leather cover. It's got this symbol in the middle of it. It's got things sticking out of the pages. I need like a bird nest with an egg off on the side. So it kind of depends on where in the book and the purpose the art's serving, how much sort of leeway and freedom.
Gotcha.
I would like to be able to just so for the artist I'm working with right now for my next game, Gablonia, I give him a wish list. Like, I need a picture of I need a picture of 3 goblins in a fancy bar. And he'll take it and he'll do it, and it'll be awesome. And it'll be, because his style, it's this loose, sketchy, ink splattered style. And I fear that if I gave him too much,
that makes sense.
I wouldn't get that freedom and that looseness that I want.
Now, is this somebody you worked with before that you know well and how to work with them, or you just picked? Okay, no. That's awesome.
This was I needed an artist for this project, and I did not have anybody that worked. Like, nobody's style quite hit what I wanted that I knew. So I asked friends. I said, "This is what I need," and he is an artist at a Renaissance festival. He knows a lot of my friends from the Renaissance Festival, and they said, check this guy out. And I pulled up his portfolio. I'm like, holy crap.
Do you want to name drop at this time?
This artist is called Thomas Boatwright. Thomas Boatwright, he's an awesome artist. He does mostly, Renaissance festivals.
Gotcha.
So I don't know how many books he's done beforehand.
Well, he sounds great for interior art. I don't know, maybe cover awesome too, but
for this specific game, interior art, his style fits very much what I wanted for this game.
And then when you're finished this thought, let's pass it over to John. I feel like we need to give him a chance to talk.
I'm taking a drink of my drink.
So, John, with you, because you've done a lot of different projects, whether it's comics or books or things for conventions, like their pamphlet type books. That's the wrong word. Programs. That's the word I wanted. As well as your current role-playing game that you're working on. So when you reach out to artists, how's that go for you?
Well, it's a little different, and I agree with Robert about paying people, but sometimes we have people that approach us, and it's more of a tryout. Now, as long as you've told them that this is a tryout for, the key thing for us is color palettes. So I need colorists. So they're taking a sample of our artwork and they're applying their colors to it.
Okay.
But they know up front that this is just a tryout, a sample of what their works are on this particular piece of art. The other artists, we typically pay 25% up front, and then we do edits, and then once we get within 2 weeks of the next thing, another 25%, 25%, 25%, and it's paid off. And yes, consistency is very important throughout the whole book.
Right, that makes sense.
The artist can consistently produce on the same level throughout the book. It gives the book consistency and professionalism, actually. We had, this is not a role-playing game, but back to our comic books, we had one of the artists we lost one of our artists. So I had to hire somebody to do the whole book because I didn't want to have them just plug in the extra 12 pages that we didn't have done. I wanted the whole book to look exactly the same throughout the whole book. So,
yeah,
it's just it's just worth it to have that done to start with.
How
So,
detailed do you both go? Because I'm about to mention contracts. Contracts are important when you're working between two people for a job, so it's clear and whatnot. And with both of you, how much minutia do you go into in the contract, or how general do you keep it, and what's the pros and cons of each here?
well, for me, fortunately, one of our board members is a lawyer, so he, he's written up all the contracts and stuff. But our main purpose is that everybody has to understand and should be confident that there's no way that we can take anything from them. It's an ironclad contract. They own all rights, all creative rights and stuff to that. But with the caveat, when it's work for hire and stuff, they understand that through the contract that this is work for hire. Whatever you do, we own at the end of it. You get no royalties. There's no tie-ins with it.
If I can interrupt real
Right.
quick, throwing back to the old thing, Kitty has the old thing, the thing you were just talking about before this. Kitty asked they weren't able to mimic the style of the old artist. Do you want to talk about that, and when you have to bring a new artist in, why you might just start from page 0 again?
Well, for me, I mean, that was one of the talents that I had at Marvel, was that I was able to mimic somebody else's penciling. So a comic is a little different than most role-playing things, because the artist is typically the person that does the
Terry
inking, the
42
coloring,
is now
and
following.
everything. In a comic book, you have
If I can interrupt
people.
again, sorry for that. Sari, thank you very much for that follow. Good to have you here in the tavern. Carry on, John.
So in a comic book, you have 3 different people. So you have a penciler, you have an inker, which can add consistency and stuff to it if you keep that person consistent throughout it. And then, well, the letterer, the colorist, though, is the next important cog in the wheel. And actually, the colorist now is more important than they'd ever been in the past in the comic book industry. So,
Why is that?
my talent was I was able to mimic other people's penciling. And when I go to conventions, I show people a certain artist's pencils and 3 different inkers, how it looks so totally different. Because an inker is not just there to darken in lines; they're there to embellish the artwork and make it better.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for backing up and answering that one. Did you finish your thoughts on the contracts and how much or how little you put in it? And when you do, pass it on to Robert. Let's get his point of view on that.
Like I said, our contracts are more written so people know what they own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we want them to be, to never have a doubt on what's going to happen in the future with them. But like I said, works for hire or works for hire. I mean, they understand that they don't own any stake in the end product. Where we have other people, and typically in comic books, they have a stake. They get royalties on that product. So,
And Robert?
pass it on to Robert.
Yeah, so I'm going to roll back just a little bit because John said something about paying 25% up front. I do it a little bit differently. For the very first book I did, it was half up front because you don't know who I am. All right, so at least then you're getting some money. Now that I've got some products under my belt and people can see and know how much I pay, it's half when we approve your concept renderings. So I'll talk to the artist, we'll work out what their fee is, and it's different depending on the artist and depending on what they're doing. So like if an artist is doing full color, they're often going to ask for a higher fee and get a higher fee than someone that's doing black and white pen and ink. Even if it's an awesome pen and ink drawing, and I've got 2 books, Starship Infernum and Purgatory House, that have awesome pen and ink drawings, those artists, most of them did not ask for as much as the color artists on Weird Scouts did, because You're like, oh, I don't have to color this? Great. That saves me X hours. That saves you X dollars. But now it's to the point where I pay people half when we have approved concept renderings. And what that means is we've talked about what the number of pictures that I want from them, the number of illustrations. We've talked about what each of those illustrations is in words, like this is 3 goblins at a fancy bar or whatever. And then they do a thumbnail, which some of my artists, it's literally we've been sitting at a convention and they've sketched something on a cocktail napkin. All right. But that to me is one of the most important parts of the process. That's thumbnail, quick sketch, so that we are on the same page before we move forward. And that's when that first check drops, is once we both know we're on the same page and we're ready to move forward with this project.
If I can interrupt real quick. Hey, looks like we're getting a raid in here. It's Channel Joel Rip and Bren Nailed It and all the others coming in. So we're going to pause a moment and say hello. Guys, we are recording a podcast for Right Night October. It's good to see you. And here's to you guys. Thank you very much for supporting Joe Rip and raiding along with him there and getting those channel points. For anybody listening to podcasts, this is something that happens when we do our live recordings. We get folks popping in.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, thank you very much for that. And always good to see you, Bren. Now, I'm going to flip us back into the topic so we don't pull too far away for too long. Robert, were you able to finish your thought before I interrupted there?
Well, you wanted to kind of know how much I put in a contract.
Go on.
Our contracts, almost all of the artists that I hire, like John was saying, are work for hire. I'm not in comic books. The artists don't have a stake in the product. They're getting paid X amount for X number of illustrations in either black and white or color. They have to give thumbnails by this date to get their first check. They have to give inked by this date, and finals are due on this date. And it, like he's saying, you break down exactly what their rights are within the terms of the contract. And my contract actually came from a well-established industry role-playing game artist that I used on Purgatory House and then Starship Infernum. I asked him, I said, this is my first time doing it. Do you have a contract that you feel is really good for you as an artist to make everything clear, but is still a work for hire business contract? It's not like, oh, you pay me $1 million, I own your life. That's great for an artist. No. And he sent me one that's used by a much bigger company, a boilerplate contract. I was like, oh, this is great. We actually don't need this clause, or this clause. And I had been through contracts as a freelancer writing and designing for other people.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, that's not in there. That's not in there. That's not in there. Clean this up. So our contract is a 2-page contract, but it's a pretty solid contract. And it does spell out that it's work for hire. We own the rights. You can't sell that to anybody else. You can put it on t-shirts, mugs, mouse pads, whatever you want. Those are yours to sell at shows. But the printed art in a book belongs to us.
Right. John, you had a comment?
Yeah, in a quick thing within the contract, or now this is sometimes we can go a little looser on specifics, but I require a certain amount of edits that we're allowed to do.
Yes.
And that should be between you and the artist. You should be able to easily say, all right, well, I'll take your first draft. These are the edits I want. But there's no artist that wants to,
At Capella University, you're in control of your education. With the game-changing FlexPath format, you can set your own deadlines and move at your own pace. The faster you move, the more you save. Visit capella.edu to learn more.
With MailChimp, you get a whole lot more than a URL. You get an all-in-one marketing platform to help drive sales. That means you can connect your data to make more informed, smarter decisions. And you get powerful automation tools like our Customer Journey Builder to ensure you never miss an opportunity to turn shoppers into loyal customers. So if you're ready to integrate your marketing and boost sales, get started today at MailChimp.com/smartmarketing. MailChimp, built for growing businesses.
15 edits later, it's like, you know, but there has to be a reasonable amount of editing that you have to be able to do.
Yes.
You have to be able to tell them, that pose isn't just right. And why did you give the guy an axe when I told you it was supposed to be a sword?
Yeah.
And that's an easy thing for them.
So would you say about 3 edits is reasonable? Not enough? Too much?
That's usually when I'm talking with an artist. It's about 3 edits.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Before we ink. Once I'm happy with the pencils, they can ink away.
and that's kind of the same for me. That's why I find those thumbnails so important, because that's before you get into start counting your edits. That's a 30-second sketch.
Yep.
And no, we'll reject thumbnails, or I really like the eyes, but this guy, the body shape is all wrong. And we're talking quick, dirty, 30-second, 1-minute sketches.
Storyboard.
That, yeah. And once we've got those, it goes to pencils, and it's okay. I'll reserve the right to make some changes at pencils, but I really want my artist to stop at that point and show me the pencils, because I hate
Finish your thought.
for an artist to go past that point and ink something and it not be right, because then they're going to have to redo it with those edits, and they've gone too far in the process.
But thank you for cutting yourself off just like that for that. Sari here says, that's brilliant that you're keeping it short and clear. As a contracts manager, everything I've studied, long contracts are not helpful. It muddles things. It confuses things. To make it short and concise and clear, but cover your bases.
Yep.
It's important, and most of us don't want the classic Mephistopheles contract that you roll out a 12-foot scroll.
And the key thing about that too is that later on in the industry, the word gets out that, hey, these guys' contracts are legitimate. They're not out to try to put a bunch of caveats in there to screw you later.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
Let me jump in there on have a contract. If you're hiring artists, have a contract. Even if I'm working with a family member, not my wife, okay? My wife will do art without a contract. There's a bigger contract involved there. But my brother-in-law, if he does art for me, there's a contract. My friend who's in my weekly gaming group, hey, went to art school. I want to do a couple illustrations. There's a contract. And if I come up with an artist that says, oh, I'm not comfortable signing contracts, okay, well, I'm not comfortable working with someone without a contract. This is a business arrangement, not a friend doing a favor.
Right.
So it protects the artist and it protects you, and it sets expectations.
It does. I've had experiences with my first book. I approached an artist about a cover and got a price, and they went, oh, it's free. We want to see it out there. We want to see it in use. I went, cool, let's do that. And then they came back and they went, oh, no, spoke to my wife, said I can't give it out free. Has to be this much. I went, great, give me this amount of time. I'll get that to you. And they're like, well, you could just use it and then pay that. I'm like, okay, can we do a contract? And the artist said, yeah, we have one. Here's one. And it was very simple, super simple. And it mentioned I have to give credit. And I specified in that contract, inside the front cover and on the back cover too. Okay.
Yeah.
It turned out 2 weeks after I published, I'm getting very nasty messages and emails about how I'm breaking the contract because when I post the book on social media, I'm not specifically mentioning the artist's name every time. And I went, you know what? I got this. I paid the artist, and then I changed the cover. As a matter of fact, it was Robert that did a quick Photoshop out of some, not clip art, what's it called? The standard stock art, thank you.
Stock art, yeah. Yep.
And it wasn't nearly as pretty, but it was better because there was less stress.
And it was done. And we had a contract.
Right.
And that's another thing, too, is that contract doesn't have to be for monetary. I mean, exposure is valuable. So
to a point.
Well, yeah.
The whole thing of, and the reason I say that is people die of exposure. You can't pay your rent with exposure. To use exposure initially in strategic ways is great. To constantly do your craft for exposure is self-defeating in the long run.
Oh, yes, I agree wholeheartedly with that part.
So along those lines, I picked up an artist. She's an amazing artist. She's actually the cover artist on Weird Scouts, and the sequel to Weird Scouts, which hasn't been written yet, but I've already got the cover for it, paid for in hand. But I met her at a convention, and did not realize when I was meeting her that she was a high school student, right? Because she's at a professional show presenting as a professional artist. And I talked to her, I take her card, I give her my card about doing book covers, because I really liked her style. It was this anime, that what the kids are good at, but it was amazing.
Right.
And so when I finally reached out to her, she was like, oh yeah, I mean, normally I charge like $10-15. I was like, no, hang on, time out. Wait a second. She goes, well, I would just do this one maybe, because I'm going to then have a cover for my portfolio. I'm like, nope. Warning bells going off. And I was like, okay, this is what we need. This is our timeline. We work for contracts. And she's like, oh, well, we got to move it around my final exams. And I said, oh, what are you getting your major in? And she's like, no, I'm graduating high school. So I almost didn't hire her just because she was so new and so green, and I didn't want anybody to think, especially this artist, that I was taking advantage of her in the long run. I talked to other artists, and I talked to her about that. And she set a price that she felt very comfortable on that was below the industry standard that I'm used to paying.
Mm-hmm.
But we signed a contract for it, because I was like, if this artist flakes out, then the money that I saved will be worth it when I have to hire a new artist that's more established in business. But I would not let her sell that cover for $15.
Right.
It wouldn't happen. And she turned out great, and I ended up paying her what I would pay a cover artist as a tip, and told her, I said, I know this is maybe your first professional job. You're good. There were some communication issues along the way. We dealt with them. We both learned you need to raise your prices. If you want to be a professional artist, you don't have to charge $800, but you got to get up there.
That's something else. We've discussed this as writers, Robert. Underpricing yourself, it devalues your work. There is something called perceived value. Look it up. Google it.
Yeah.
Come to understand it at least a little bit before you undersell your work. And if I may, I'd like to read a few comments here, rolling up a little bit. Kitty Rin, in reference to something we were saying earlier, says, I'm just starting out as an artist, and I've already seen evidence of a lot of flaky people out there. Green Goblin says, my mortgage is only 2 exposures a month. Kitty also mentions, exposure won't put food on the table. No one should work for exposure. Yet exposure has a very specific purpose. And if you're working for exposure, which I have done for conventions before, yeah, there comes a point in time where you have to go, I have to stop losing money by showing up. And realize there's a better way to do this. Sari says, even a nominal fee is better than exposure. And Kitty says, I had someone a few years back go into my Facebook photos of Ren fairs, help themselves to every image that were in there, and told me the pictures were theirs, and they were giving me exposure. Yeah, I was feeling very exposed. And the Goblin actually asked a very relevant question. I don't mean to sound surprised, but...
I mean, he's exposing himself to pay his rent, so...
That's true. Goblin says, does imposter syndrome come into underselling your work? Yes, it absolutely does. Robert, John, you guys got more than just yes, it does? You're familiar with imposter syndrome?
very familiar with imposter syndrome. It does not, like, I do have imposter syndrome, sure, but it doesn't come into play when I'm doing a contract. I also have a business sense that is, okay, this is a business, and the only time it comes in, like, on my end as a contract, like, I don't care if you're an imposter. If you do good art, great. As long as you're not stealing somebody's art, that would be theft.
Right.
And I'm not going to pay for that. But when I'm freelancing for someone, so when I'm hired to write for somebody else, there's not really imposter syndrome there. Not as terms of getting paid. It's like, they'll say, okay, I'm going to pay you this much per word. And I'll think about it. And I'll be like, this job is going to take me 2 weeks really to write. And one of those weeks is going to suck really horribly just because of what I have to write. Then is that number per word worth it? Is that worth my time? Not is that worth my skill as a writer? Is it worth my time to suffer through this gig? And if it is, great. And if it's not, I'm sorry, you're going to have to find somebody else.
You want to finish your thought, and then I want to jump in with some stuff here?
No, I think that's good.
Fun fact, the artist for my latest kids book just messaged me and is texting me some photos of her work, that because she had just moved and found out she's pregnant and all this stuff. So she's been busy and hasn't sent me anything in a little bit. So that's delightful, which, by the way, this is the third artist to work on this book. So I've dealt with...
You gotta stop killing your artists.
Shh. It's for exposure. And a couple of comments here that I'd like to read. Going back to what you started out saying, Robert, when I'm working with contracts, there is no imposter syndrome because I'm dealing with black or white facts. Here's this.
Right.
But when it comes to selling my work, standing there, handing somebody a book of mine when I'm at a convention and telling them how great I am, that's where it comes into play. Robert gets around that, or has in the past, by becoming a character that can talk about himself as a different person, not there. And it works better
It does. It does.
Couple other comments, and then I'll pass it back to you or John. Kitty
I would say even Robert, the author, is not me.
Right.
That's a character at conventions. Even when it's me, it's still a character.
Right.
And that does go a long way towards not getting into that imposter syndrome mindset.
Definitely. Kitty says, the way I feel about it, if my art or photography isn't good enough to be paid for, then the person needs to be somewhere else. I'm not the person they want. That is agreed. And Wordwin clarifies the imposter thing, saying most people starting out simply don't know what they're worth. And it doesn't help with the number of people devaluing their work. And something I'll tell you guys is I have had people, when I'm here writing on my Twitch channel, pop in and become critical of a book that I've already published or what I'm doing right now. And when you're in a creative mode, you're kind of in an exposed, sensitive mode. I mean, you're a little raw and open at that moment, and it can surprise you like a slap to the face, even though they're not necessarily being harsh. They're just commenting their thoughts. You're somewhere else, and you're not in that, I realize I'm about to face some stuff, and I need to, put on my tough skin. It's not on, and it can throw me. Okay, who's got some more stuff to say about this? And we got just a couple more minutes, and we're going to do the wrap-up on this, so maybe some pearls of wisdom or just points of advice. Go ahead, John.
For us in particular, and this is for Conquest Publishing, with our company, we try to have some groundwork and some rules and stuff, so to try to alleviate any of that stuff from happening to start with. We're unique in that we're also teaching people how to get into the industry, so we have to, where at that level does it go from exposure to, hey, now you're going to get paid for this, and but that's always that part's a judgment call. But we're very. I know you went back to the teenager with the high school thing. we always interview the parents and stuff too. We make sure that they're on board with everything that goes on, and that they have to sign a consent form anyway with us. So as
Yeah.
far as that goes.
Well, this lady had just turned 18,
Right.
and it didn't feel right to get her parents involved, like contract wise, at that point. But I did say, hey, you're in high school doing final exams. You don't have to take this job. I will hire you afterwards. Your parents on board, everybody on board, because once we do this, like, you're doing the cover, and we've got deadlines.
Well, you also helped her out immensely by giving her the your experience on how to move forward with her career. So, I mean, it's a give and take thing.
Yeah.
Okay, closing thoughts or wrap-ups on this? Robert, wait, you had another sudden gasp of inspiration there.
Well, yeah, but it can be my wrap up, because it kind of goes in with the deadlines thing. I have found, as an author and a publisher, and I hope none of my artists are watching, but I think most of them know this by now. I build in what I call flex time. All right, I give a deadline, knowing that we can miss that deadline by X number of weeks and still get files to the printer by when I want them.
Right.
Now, that might mean I have to pull a couple all-nighters with layout or something, but I put in time for things to happen. I don't ever leave it open-ended, because if you leave something open-ended, oh, get this to me when it's done, it won't get done, right? People do work well with deadlines. Like, I know this is due, I can budget my time so it's done by this date. But artists are human beings with lives. And I had a great artist of mine who worked on Starship Infernum. I don't think I knew about him on... Oh, I did know about him on Purgatory House, so he did both of those. He was going through a rough patch. I think his mom was in the hospital. And his work started to suffer. Like, he skipped his pencils, went straight to inks, and there were lots of notes. And I felt really bad giving all these notes, but I was like, this wasn't what we talked about. This isn't going to work. This isn't the right size. And I said, hey, what's going on? He goes, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to hit deadlines, but my mom is in the hospital, and so I'm just working ahead because I don't know what's going to happen. I said, stop. Dude, your mom is in the hospital. Art for a role-playing game book doesn't matter. Go be with your mom. No, but I signed a contract. No, go be with your mom. Because that's the human thing to do. And once you've dealt with that, once whatever unfolds in that situation, once you're back in a place where you can art, then you'll art, and you'll do it at your normal, awesome level. And we won't have this stress, and we won't have this frustration, and we won't have the cross communication and the redos on everything. And that was exactly how it played out. And by him taking the time to go deal with the human aspects of his life, he came back. And I don't know, honestly, what had happened. I don't know if his mom passed. I don't know if she got better. But he came back in a state to work again. And because I had built in an extra month, yeah, no big deal.
Couple comments. Sari says, float is normal business practice. My employer does the same as a normal course of business. Extra for government dealings. And Kitty says, emotions have a huge impact on art. I'm going to give my closing thoughts and give each of you guys a chance to wrap it up also, because we're pretty much out of time for this. Here's what I'm going to say. Learn a little bit about reading people. Learn how to read your artist. And as you're reading your artist, also come in like it's a business transaction. And though that might feel a bit cold, it's very important to make everybody feel safe, black and white. Here's our parameters. Here's the deal. Then people can get emotional for the art where the emotion belongs. John, closing thoughts?
Well, and I agree. Structure is very important. Even more for us with younger people too. They're not used to having that structure. So giving that to them, They have expectations. They know where they need to be. And you should also, as a publicist, say, all right, I know what the expectation is. Explain to me what happened. And then we just make, we should all be Scotties, Tell the captain you can have it done in 5 days, and you can do it in 3. So,
Right.
Right.
So it's simple as that.
Robert?
Under promise, over deliver. But shoot, I had a closing thought.
Is it the fact that you look like Steven Spielberg with your beard and your hat like that?
I lost it because of John's awesome comment. It'll come to me, but
Right after we wrap up the show.
right after we wrap this show, it was something about I don't know, paying your artists, do pay your artists. That was not my close. Oh, compliment sandwich. That was what we didn't touch on. That was my closing thought.
Go ahead.
I'm not great at this. I have to consciously remind myself to do it. But working with artists, especially working with artists for the first time, the compliment sandwich is a huge, helpful tool. You name something that you like, okay? And that way, one, the artist feels good about the work they're doing. It doesn't suck. I like this. Two, that's going to stay in the final version, and you don't want to lose it. So something you like, these are the notes. These are the things that need to be changed, and close with something you like. Or overall, this is awesome. I know once you get those 3 little tweaks done, we'll be ready to move on. But it's called a compliment sandwich. And it's actually a really good communication tool. It keeps feelings from getting hurt, and it makes sure that everybody's moving in the same direction.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, tell everybody goodbye, and I'll take us out.
Bye.
Before we go, I want to remind everyone that you can email us at rightnightshow@gmail.com. That's right with the W, night with an N, show@gmail.com. To let us know your thoughts on the show's topic, suggest other topics you'd like to hear us discuss, or just have a message read out on air to someone in your life. Thanks to everyone for supporting the show by downloading the podcast, sharing it on social media, grabbing some shirt stickers and mugs from bit.ly/tavern merch, or barware patches and hats from bit.ly/tavern merch too. It's bit.ly/tavern merch or tavern merch followed by the number 2. Thanks to everyone who joined us live at twitch.tv/Travis Tavern Talk, and everyone who supports the tavern by subscribing, hosting, throwing bits, raids, and most of all, commenting.
Thank you for joining author Travis I. Sivart and the other writers, content creators, and all-around amazing people for our discussion here on Right Night. Join us again soon, and until you do, make sure you create with passion, enjoy the journey, and remember, every night can be right night.
With MailChimp, you get a whole lot more than a URL. You get an all-in-one marketing platform to help drive sales. That means you can connect your data to make more informed, smarter decisions, and you get powerful automation tools like our Customer Journey Builder to ensure you never miss an opportunity to turn shoppers into loyal customers. So if you're ready to integrate your marketing and boost sales, get started today at MailChimp.com/smartmarketing. MailChimp, built for growing businesses.